Hello, and welcome back to our weekly astrology podcast where we light our candles, grab our blankets, we get cozy, and we talk cosmos. I am your host, astrologer and coach, Sarah Posh, and this week brings us to the moon we've all been waiting for. This Libra New Moon is kicking off the best astrology of 2025, and I, as an astrologer, am so excited to record this podcast and get to share this episode with you today. Before we dive in, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn your notifications on. That way you're not going to miss any new episodes when they come out. We're going to be releasing our forecast episodes going forward on every Thursday, like we've been doing, and the focus topics are going to come mid-cycle on a Monday. So if you have those notifications on, you don't have to remember what I just said. You will automatically get notified when those new episodes come out. With that, let's not waste any time. I am so excited to talk to you about this astrology. I'm going to give you a little overview of the highlights of the Libra New Moon week, and then we'll dive right into this beautiful Libra New Moon. So this week during the Libra New Moon, we've got that lunation starting this new cycle. And then we've also got the sun entering into Scorpio just that next day, starting Scorpio season. Happy birthday, Scorpios. And right away, it's an intense and deep Scorpio season, just how you like it, because the sun in Scorpio is going to engage with that square to Pluto in Aquarius. And finally, we're going to get the most exciting part. We're going to have Mercury in Scorpio officially starting and kicking off our Grand Water Trines. Those trines are going to be happening between Jupiter in Cancer, Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, and then all of the planets that will swim through Scorpio. One sneaky little thing with these Grand Water Trines that we're going to cover today is that it's not just the Grand Water Trine. That's not where it's punctuated. This transit timeline actually has each of the planets just as they leave Scorpio getting an exact opposition from Uranus in Gemini and then a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. So we're going to cover the new moon and the astrology of that chart, and then we're going to go into the water trines in general, kind of an overview of this energy and maybe how to leverage it and get the most magic out of it, and the sequence that is going to continue. So we'll cover the opposition to Uranus and the sextile to Pluto, kind of weaving all of this together as one arc, one plot line for these transits. And finally, we're going to end this episode getting deep into the first official Grand Water Trine with Mercury in Scorpio. With that, let's go ahead and get to the sexy Libra New Moon. On Tuesday, October 21st, we have the Libra New Moon at 28 degrees of Libra. This new moon is ruled by the planet Venus, and Venus just so happens to be co-present in Libra with the new moon. This is incredibly beneficial for all of us and a great way to start the entire cycle ahead. Not only is Venus strengthened because of her domicile and dignity in Libra, Venus also just got a major glow up the week before this new moon as she went through that grand air trine with Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. So Venus has some new connections, some new relationship resources that she's tapped into, and she's bringing those resources and sharing them with us at this Libra New Moon. A Libra New Moon cycle is always going to put an emphasis on relationships. However, this cycle is even more amplified. We've got a very strong Venus signature. In addition to that, these Grand Water Trines are also about connections, bonds, relationships. So this Libra cycle, this is about not just being at the right place at the right time. This is about being with the right people at the right place at the right time. So when I talked in last week's episode with those grand air trines to Venus, and I talked about how it was really an opportunity for us to put ourselves out there. It was not a time to sit at home in our jammies and our cozy little blankets. This is a continuation of that storyline. We need to get out there, get connected, make ourselves available to maybe even get some new introductions. These are going to become not only our alliances, maybe our secret alliances with these Scorpio activations coming, but they're also potentially going to be resources that nourish us for the long run. We'll get more into all about the connections and the relationship resourcing when we talk about those Grand Water Trines. But first, I want to come back to this Libra New Moon chart. The other part of this chart that I think is secretly significant is the Mercury-Mars conjunction in Scorpio. This conjunction happened within the last day of this new moon, so it's still extremely active. And this conjunction, if you were with us last week, we talked a lot about what it means with Mercury and Mars in Scorpio, but I also told you that there's going to be a series of 6 total conjunctions between Mercury and Mars, starting with this one in Scorpio and ending in April 2026 in the sign of Aries. So this is baked in not only to this lunar cycle, but it's also baked into really important astrology over the next 6 months or so. So even though this conjunction is happening in Scorpio, which is a sign that's in aversion to Libra, it can't see this new moon, it's going to have something to share. It has maybe some hidden secrets or hidden information that it's going to unveil as the sun and the moon enter into Scorpio just the days after. So make sure, if you haven't already, check out last week's episode. Get all of the intel on all the details about Mercury Mars, because this transit isn't necessarily good. It's not necessarily going to just be easy astrology to work with, but there's a lot of potential if we decide to participate in an intentional, mindful way. And if nothing else, I highly encourage you to use this Mercury Mars to write down your intentions at the time of this new moon. We're finally out of eclipse season, out of that eclipse energy. This is a very powerful new moon to work with if you work with moon rituals, to set intentions, to also use the Mercury Mars to set the intentions and hold them inside. This is about not putting too much energy out. This is about that soil of silence, about that energy of containment and the power of holding things in the dark, in the underground. So I know for me, I am definitely going to write my intentions down, and I'm actually going to put them inside of a book and close that book, putting a candle or maybe some flowers on top of that book for the remainder of this Libra lunar cycle. And I'm going to keep them to myself, between me and the universe. And then we'll check back in when we get to that Scorpio new moon and see what we need to maybe edit, refine, or, as you'll see as I go forward, go a little bit bigger. All right, so the next day after that new moon, on Wednesday, October 22nd, we have Neptune retrograde re-entering Pisces for its final time in this sign. And that means that it's kind of getting this last-minute invitation, and it's RSVPing, hell yes, I'm not going to miss this. I'll be there for the Grand Water Trine. And I love the addition of Neptune. It's such a watery type of planet and energy. Neptune is a planet that dissolves the boundaries of time and space. So if a Grand Water Trine wasn't already yelling flow state enough, Neptune coming into the mix is putting an exclamation point on this. Neptune is also a planet that invites us into a deeper state of surrender and trust. If we're fighting against the tides of a Neptune transit, it can lead to us feeling really disillusioned. It can be a really tiring, confusing, or exhausting moment in our experience, because Neptune is not Saturn, Neptune is not Mars, Neptune does not operate on our time and our schedule. It needs us to soften, it needs us to slow down, and to get ourselves into a more receptive, allowing state. When you're working with Neptune transits and you're not fighting the current, there can be some incredibly magical things like synchronicities and seeing through sacred symbols in your day, or messages coming through repetition in unexpected ways. I love that Neptune's here. And I also think with Neptune back in Pisces, we're going to have that little extra oomph when it comes to our intuitive superpowers. Neptune is here. Neptune is joining the support team in these Grand Water Trines, and it's also adding this new dimension of possibility to what might manifest as these weeks pass by. And then also on Wednesday, October 22nd, we have the sun entering into Scorpio. Like I said earlier, happy birthday, Scorpios. How are you doing? If you're somebody with an early Scorpio birthday, you're definitely going to feel this one, because we're in the heat of your Pluto transit. That's right. Pluto in Aquarius is activating all of the early degrees of fixed signs. And we're going to all feel that when we have the sun moving into Scorpio, because as the sun takes these plot lines, these new character and life developments from eclipse season underground, the first thing that the sun has to contend with is that square to Pluto. So let's go ahead and get to that square, because it's a heavy hitter. On Friday, October 24th, we have the sun making its exact square to Pluto in Aquarius. I will take a side note and say there's something beneficial happening to hopefully lighten the mood just a little bit, because we've got the moon in Sagittarius with that mutual reception, that beneficial relationship and communication line with Jupiter in Cancer. So even though Sun in Scorpio square Pluto is intense on its own, there's something in the air, there's something in the sense of optimism, hope, or a little bit of lift of the energy, if we're willing to kind of feel into. Maybe we'll feel them totally separate. It might be like you have a great time at a party on Friday night with that moon in Sag, but earlier that day at work, you got into an intense power struggle. That's not new, but it hit some sort of climax or major turning point with your boss. Either way, we got to talk about this Sun square Pluto. So reminder, this is not something new that's coming into our field, because we have to remember that first Mars squared Pluto back on September 24th, and then we had Mercury square Pluto back on October 7th. So there's a repetition of themes, a storyline that's been developing that opened in late September. So I invite you to go back, check in what was happening around that time. If it started with Mars, there was some sort of major turning point that changed the direction in which we were going or made us reorient our actions and our strategy. And then when Mercury came into that square with Pluto, there was a deeper understanding. Maybe some hidden information came to light, or maybe there was a truth bomb that we would have rather not dealt with. It could have also been getting into those power struggles in some kind of unhealthy, destructive debate. Either way, there's been some big change in the motion. And now when the sun comes, now we're taking this change and I'm calling it an ego evolution. And when I feel into Sun square Pluto, it feels like this intense pressure to confront where we are still playing small, or this intense pressure to suddenly just break through where we've been feeling like we're holding ourselves back in some way. This is intense. It could be cathartic. But I want you to think about, because we know the astrology ahead is so juicy, it's so good. What if this ego death is less about needing to become something greater and more about becoming the kind of person that believes that things can get even better than you imagine? So asking yourself, how good are you truly, honestly willing to let things get? Is there some part of you secretly, honestly, that's actually playing it small because there's a sense that it's keeping you safe? This square to Pluto, it wants you to challenge that. It's time to shed and release that. There's a sense of being tapped into this creative potential, tapping into the potential that lives within us and giving ourselves permission to really believe in it, to really show up for it, to really say, there is something I was born to do and I'm not going to hide from that anymore. I'm going to give it all I've got. So if any of this is resonating, I challenge you with the Sun square Pluto. Show us what you got. Give us a chance to see a little bit more of you. Maybe stand a little taller, go a little bit bigger. The other thing about Sun Pluto I want to make sure that we mention is that this energy can often feel like any Pluto transit, that life is coming at us. It can feel like we have to put ourselves onto defense because there's something that's fighting us, or there's a fight or a power struggle that we're having to face. The truth is that Pluto transits are often showing us where we're giving our power away by getting baited into energy draining power struggles. The thing with Pluto is always come back to this question: where is my choice in this transit? Sometimes choosing not to fight, sometimes choosing to starve the fight of your energy and your attention. That is the way you get your power back with Pluto. You surrender. And sometimes there is something that is so worth fighting for, and we make that choice and we give it everything we've got. We need to ask ourselves, when this sun squares Pluto, what is worth it? And if it's worth it, give it everything I've got. And if it's not truly worth it, give it everything I've got to let it go. And then finally, if you are feeling like everything is coming at you, everything is happening to you, I invite you to slow down and just invite this mantra. I use this all the time when I have the initial impulse or habit of responding with frustration and disappointment. When I hear the thought or the narrative, everything is happening to me, everything is going wrong, I pause, I catch it, and I reframe that to everything is happening for me. What if everything is happening for me? Even if I can't see it, everything is happening for me. Everything is happening for me, not to me. All right, I think I did enough about that Sun Pluto. I'll get off that podium. But comment below, I'm curious, are you a Scorpio, or do you have any planets in the early degrees of Scorpio? Have you been feeling this Pluto transit over the last year? And are you ready to enter into the next phase of this ego evolution, of this Pluto transit? Comment below. I want to hear how you're feeling. I'm very well versed in Pluto transits because Pluto has conjunct nearly every planet in my natal chart already, yes. So don't be afraid to comment below. I would love to hear from you, and also maybe share some of my Pluto experience and wisdom that I've gathered over my many lifetimes, this lifetime. And remember how I said in ego death around how good am I willing to let it get? Well, it just so happens that on the same day, on Friday, we've got Mercury in Scorpio kicking off, beginning the Grand Water Trine with a trine to Jupiter in Cancer. So simultaneous to the same day of this tough, intense, cathartic square between Sun and Pluto, Mercury's starting the cascade of waterfall of magic with that trine to Jupiter. Before we get into the trine between Mercury and Jupiter specifically, let's go ahead and pause and let's zoom out. I want to go a little bit more into the overall energy and themes that we can expect with the sequence of transits that are going to be unfolding over the next couple of months. And remember, we've got the Grand Water Trine, and then every planet that exits that Grand Water Trine immediately opposes Uranus and then completes the transit timeline with a sextile to Pluto and Aquarius. Let's start at the beginning. The story opens with these Grand Water Trines. We're talking about the element of water, so I want to tap us into that energy. I want to give you a little sense of how to work with that energy and really get you thinking, stimulating some of your curiosity, your ideas, your inspiration on how to work with this energy, how to leverage this astrology. So the element of water in astrology represents connection, inspiration, intuition, feeling, reflection. Water connects to the heart chakra, our heart energy. Water is also an element of attraction and attunement. Water is naturally a sensitive element. Planets in water signs have a natural sensitivity. They have a natural empathy or a gift of being able to be permeable and aware of the feeling tone and the feeling nature of their environment and also their relationships. Water is also something that cannot be grasped or shaped. The more that we try to hold water, we try to grip it, the more that it falls through our hands. And so when we think about the resourcing of these Grand Water Trines and the way to work with them, this is about leaning into the flexibility and the flow. Water moves around and through the earth to make its way through its path. It might have a direction in which it's flowing, but it's not impeded by any kind of obstacle. It's able to move around and through. Another way to think about this is thinking about the difference between using a car to get from destination A to destination B. What goes into that is that usually there's a road we have to take. There's a map we have to follow. There's a certain speed and direction that we have to go from A to B. But water is more like sailing. We have to get from point A to point B, and the way that we do that, it's not by pulling a map and taking a certain highway. It's about being available, flexible, and adjusting to the conditions of our environment, of the weather, of the wind, in order to navigate our way forward through the conditions into our destination. So there's more about this need for flexibility and flow, and also the endurance of trust. The ability to know that if you just keep moving in the intentional direction, but you open yourself up for how you exactly get there, the more you're going to be available to receive the opportunity these Grand Water Trines bring. Another quote that was coming to me, it's a very Jupiter quote, but it's also very much, I think, connected to these Grand Water Trines, is the definition of luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Similar, I think that water, where it can't be held, it can't be gripped, it can't be manipulated with our hands, it does need containment. If we were trying to pour a water into our hand, we only have so much water that this container can hold. So if we want more water, we need a bigger and a stronger container. And this is the preparation piece of these Grand Water Trines and of the luck that wants to come. What are the containers that you have that feel solid and ready to receive and hold the water of opportunity that these trines might bring? Do you actually have the container, the vessel, the structure in your schedule that is ready and available for an opportunity to take you somewhere new? Does my container, does my daily schedule, does my work-life balance have the space to hold more of that? And if I want more, how can I create more space for it to come through? So there's some things that have to change or maybe readjust and be addressed before, in preparation for the opportunity that we're calling in or that we wish to call in. So take a moment and just check with yourself, what are the things that you're really wishing for? If you could wish for anything, if you could go big, if you were going to use this Libra New Moon and these Grand Water Trines to really put yourself out there and ask for something even bigger, or the desire that you've been dying to make manifest, is your life schedule available for this to actually come? If it shows up tomorrow, the opportunity you're looking for, do you have your business card ready? Remember, this is so much about people and connections. So we have to be ready and available, even as simple as, are you wearing the wardrobe of the version of you that this opportunity would naturally match and resonate into attracting? Sometimes the simple shifts can be the most significant. The other thing I want to point out is that with these Grand Water Trines, we've got Saturn in Pisces. And this is the end of that Saturn transit. So if you're in your Saturn return, you have Saturn in Pisces, congratulations, you lucked out. You get one of the best endings to your Saturn return story. And also, everybody's been going through Saturn and Pisces since March of 2023, which means if you've been doing the hard Saturn work, if you've been learning some hard lessons, if you've been growing up and showing up, you've earned. That is part of your preparation work for some of these Grand Water Trine opportunities. So also make sure that you're taking note, having some gratitude for the past version of yourself that did the work with Saturn, and you're counting that as part of the container that will allow you to be available and receptive to receive what wants to meet you. And then finally, making sure we mention intuition. This is so much about getting yourself into a state where you are available to receive, whether it's an intuitive message and guidance, but also an intuitive impulse. This cycle, these trines, this is the moment to follow your hunch. That little hunch, that little feeling you have that's like tugging you, but your logical linear mind can't really make sense of it. It can't really nail down the specifics of why or how you're exactly going to make that happen. Don't worry about that. We're sailing, not driving. As long as you trust that hunch and you start moving forward, following it, there might be like a trail or a treasure hunt of things that reveal themselves as you move forward that lead you somewhere that's totally unexpected, but maybe even better than where you first imagined. So be open to things happening in ways that are nonlinear and ways that are unplanned or unexpected. Let the water trines flow to you and flow through you in ways that are natural and organic. Don't try to force, don't try to grip, try to be open and try to be available. And part of making ourselves available to this astrology has a lot to do with trust. Even if we can't see it, can we trust it? Even if it's not real yet in our immediate experience, can we tap into the feeling as if before it becomes real? I'm not a huge proponent or advocate for law of attraction practices. Like, it's not something I'm going to get on a pedestal and teach about or talk a lot about. But this is a moment to maybe do a little bit surface level research and experimentation with those laws of attraction, because this is the moment that those things might actually make some real magic, some practical magic. It's a little woo, but water, it's woo. And then last but certainly not least, in talking about water, is talking about the power of frequency and sound when it relates to water. There is enough scientific backed evidence at this point for us to understand the power and relationship between sound and water. There's been studies that show the more that we speak positive words, loving words into a cup of water, it's shown that it starts to develop even more beautiful crystal structures within that water versus the cups that we speak negative words into, or worries or fears. We actually watch those crystal structures break down and that water start to visibly age in front of us. We are 70% water. Hello, you are 70% water. I am 70% water. So this is not just some woo self-help mirror talk, do it because it's like, love yourself. Like, no, you actually have so much power to attune your vessel and expand the crystal structures within the water and the cells of your body through a practice as simple as speaking kindly towards yourself, or maybe whispering into the water bottle something loving, something kind, a word of gratitude, maybe a prayer for the collective, for the benefit of all beings, but putting more of our positive energy, sound, and frequency into water and into ourselves, and then consuming that and becoming a greater resonance, a greater magnet of attraction available to match the opportunities and also the people that we might not even have met yet, that could become our greatest allies, our greatest resources. So maybe it's woo, but I'm gonna be whispering in my water. Are you? Comment below. I wanna hear what resonates the most out of all of these things when we talk about water. Does it make you think of anything that I missed? I'd love to hear. Drop it in the comments. Tell me what you're thinking. And now we need to finish this by talking briefly about the oppositions to Uranus and the sextile to Pluto. So if you remember, we had a new moon in Virgo, that first new moon in Virgo that wasn't an eclipse, and it was exactly square Uranus that had just entered Gemini. If you want to go back, you can go back and either look at my social media posts that I wrote about, or you can look at previous videos. But the theme of that cycle and new moon square Uranus was bless this mess. It was about inventing new methods within the madness. It was about allowing ourselves to see what was feeling disruptive or chaotic as opportunities like creative chaos, right? It was this co-creative invitation to get our hands a little messy, to get our minds a little bit glitchy in order to create new pathways, new methods, new Uranus and Gemini possibilities and ways of doing things. So now bringing this back to the Grand Water Trines and how this opposition, the next major turning point of these planets aspecting Uranus and Gemini, is happening just after the Grand Water Trine. I'm seeing this as something like a wave of opportunity, something unexpected comes in and it crashes down into your life. But that wave kind of makes a mess. It gets water all over your map, and your map, you're using old school ink, and it smears with the water. And so you're looking at this map, and it almost looks like there are no roads, there are no paths. And immediately you can kind of feel that sense of frustration. You can feel like this is happening to me, everything's going wrong, because we can't conceptually understand it. Our logical mind is totally thrown off, and we can get stuck there. Or we could see this as the next turning point of Uranus and Gemini saying, babe, maybe you could rewrite the map. Like, what if this smeared, messy, unexpected situation is the exact opportunity for you to rewrite the map of your life, to rewrite the map of possibility of how you could get from point A, destination A, where you are, to point B, the future that you're calling in? What if you can make up a new shortcut? This is something I'm going to make sure I'm thinking about as we enter into those oppositions with Uranus. Everything that shows up as disruptive, I'm immediately going to ask myself, oh, there's a glitch in my matrix. I wonder what new shortcut, highway, road is being built in the map of my reality. And to kind of keep it light, right? A Uranus transit, it wants us to have fun. It wants us to get out of our adult serious mode. Uranus is like lighten up. So it's definitely not a time to get super Saturn serious around this opposition to Uranus. It's a time to shake shit up and do things differently. Let yourself be the version of yourself that isn't thinking so hard or giving too many thinks about what everyone else is doing or thinking. Authenticity is your new ink pen that you're going to write with when you're drawing this new map in its opposition to Uranus. And then let's not forget, this doesn't end there. It ends with a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. What I love about this is that every single planet that went through Scorpio started with that square to Pluto in Aquarius. So what started as a really edgy, intense, challenging square with Pluto, a challenging change that had to be confronted and addressed or maybe initiated, now it gets to this place where the edges are smoothed out. And it's almost as if we're now shaking hands with Pluto. Pluto is congratulating us and collaborating with us. There's a synergy between everything that we've gone through to this point. If we did that Pluto work, if we confronted the challenges and the changes, and we said, yes, we surrendered where we were trying to force or control, now we get the benefit of Pluto saying, all right, cool, yeah, let's work together. I can help you out. This is how I can help you. So this might feel like a little bit of a Pluto reward. If you look back to when Mars started those squares in end of September, September 24th, by the time we get to the first sextile with Mercury and Pluto after these Grand Water Trines, I'm going to be so curious, both for myself and for you. I want to see, I want to feel, I want to hear how this chapter in the story threw us for a loop in the best way. Okay, so we've got a clear, big overview picture. You can apply everything we just talked about to all the planets that are going to go through this series of transits as we move forward in the next couple of months. But we will end this episode by mentioning that the first planet starts this series on that same day as the Sun square Pluto on Friday, October 24th, when Mercury in Scorpio trines Jupiter in Cancer. Mercury is going to be the first personal planet to go through the series of transits, and Mercury is also going to be the last. We have an upcoming Mercury retrograde, so there's something significant here. If Mercury has to do with our thoughts, our communication, the exchanges that we have with others, it has to do with trade, commerce. Mercury is our intellectual understanding of something. It might even be something as simple as the intentions that we physically wrote at the time of the new moon. It feels like Mercury has the bonus of getting to turn in a first, second, and third draft to these Grand Water Trines. So imagine this Mercury trine Jupiter. This is the opening statement of your first draft with Mercury in these transits. What is your first draft? What are the things that you're going to voice and claim that you are ready to ask for, the exchanges that you're ready to say yes to, the curiosities you're ready to explore and expand? And maybe think back to that first Mercury-Mars conjunction in Scorpio. What were some of the things that you seeded in the soil of silence? Some of the decision power that you maybe had around that time, some major decisions that you made, but you kept them within yourself. Are you ready to see the manifestation or the universe's response in exchange to those decisions or those intentions? This is going to reflect where you're currently at in this first draft of Mercury in your actual ability, your mind's willingness to believe in the possibility of what you're asking for or what you're deciding on. As Mercury swims forward in Scorpio, next it's going to trine Saturn in Pisces on Saturday, October 25th, and it's going to continue forward holding this trine energy all the way through the following Wednesday. Pay attention to any signs, any synchronicities, any messages that are coming maybe through your dreams. Write everything down. Make sure you've got a copy of your first draft of Mercury, because we're going to need that as we go into the next week's astrology and we introduce and invite Mars into the party, into the Grand Water Trines. We'll wait to get into the juicy details of Mars and Scorpio in these Grand Water Trines in next week's episode. So make sure that you've got those notifications turned on, you're subscribed to the channel so that you won't miss it. You're going to get it ahead of time. You have plenty of time to prepare for the opportunity coming to Mars. If you're here and you're enjoying this episode and you haven't already, please go ahead and make sure that you like this video. It helps the channel so much. And if you found any of this helpful, please be like the water and spread it to the masses, all of your friends or family or anybody you think that might benefit or appreciate it. And if you're somebody who's looking for any more resources or support, I've got all of my offerings linked below this episode. I've got my one-on-one consultations with limited availability for booking, as well as some digital products, my written social media posts, and of course, my Libra New Moon Spotify music playlist. So be sure to check those out, linked below. I'm so sad that this episode is over, but I'm so excited for what's to come. Thank you so much for joining me today on our Libra New Moon Cozy with the Cosmos episode. Happy Libra New Moon, cosmic lovers. New moon blessings and magic to all of us. From my heart to yours. I will see you next week.